Hi everyone, and welcome to week 6 of our Sweet Childhood Memories Sew Along, hosted by Pat Sloan at her website ilovetomakequilts.com. If you haven't done so already, jump over to Pat's website, download this week's free pattern, come back here and I'll show you how to do it. There are no changes or alterations to this week's cutting directions, so I have cut them out as per the pattern. You'll see on the board in front of me here, I have background rectangles and squares. The squares will create sew and flips. I also have medium rectangles and medium squares that are a bit bigger. You can use the same medium fabric or different, one large dark square and 4 small dark squares also. Let's sew. The corner units are made up of a simple 4-patch construction, and you can see me laying it out here as per the pattern. Once this is laid out, we'll start by sewing our vertical seams, pressing towards the darker of the 2 fabrics, and then sewing our horizontal seams, and I'll meet you back then because I'll once again go through how to spin the center. Spinning the seam allowances on the back of the block allows you to have the flattest block possible. What you can see me doing here is giving the block a little twist to break the few stitches that are above my seam line. If they don't pull out easily, I just use jack to give them a bit of a yank. Then I make sure that all of my seam allowances are going in the same direction, in this instance clockwise. We then give it an all over press and you have spun the seams. Now, spinning the seams on a simple 4-patch like this isn't really necessary, as pressing to one side they can lay quite flat already. It is of more use when you have a pinwheel style block and you have up to 8 or 12 pieces of fabric coming together in that inner section. Spinning the seams on the back of those just allows you to have the flattest block possible. It's time to move on to the central sections of the outside of our block, and these are sew and flip units, and we need to pay special attention because we need to make sure that we are making a left and a right hand side. I'm using directional fabric for mine and I want all of the trees to stay in the right direction, so I cut that accordingly. I'll need to pay extra special attention when doing my left and right units to make sure that I'm maintaining my correct fabric orientation. We're going to start in this section by doing the left hand sew and flips before moving on to the right hand sew and flips. You'll simply make 2 stacks of 4 of these medium rectangles before continuing to make the left and the right sew and flips. As I said before, we will start by doing the left hand side, and I have to pay special attention, as I said, because I am using a directional fabric. To create the sew and flip, we begin by drawing a diagonal line on the back of our smaller background squares, and before lining that up on our medium rectangle and sewing it as per the pattern. When creating a sew and flip, I prefer to sew just to the outside of my drawn line, and that allows for the fabric that is taken up when we fold it over and press afterwards. I'll place a little pin in this one here now to hold it while I get the one for the top ready, and then we just need to make 4 in this layout. For these left hand side sew and flips, we need to place our background square so that our drawn line goes from the top left corner down to the bottom right. When attaching our sew and flip units, it is best to go from the straight edge towards the corner rather than from the corner. As I said before, we need to stitch just to the outside of our drawn line. So in this instance, I need to move my needle over to the left and put it in the position that works for me with this foot that I'm using. We stitch just to the outside of our drawn line so that when we press it back over, the extra fabric that's taken up by our seam line is accounted for. It's now time to place a second sew and flip on our medium rectangles, and we need to make sure that we are putting them in the same orientation as the one that we've already sewn on. This will create the desired parallelogram shape that we're after. You should take special care here, and once again we'll do all four before moving on to our right hand sew and flips. Once again, because it's best to go from the straight edge of our block as opposed to the corner, I am stitching one thread width to the left hand side of my drawn line. With those all sewn now, it's time to fold our pieces back and ensure that we've maintained the original size of our foundation fabric. After we've done this, we can press that fabric into place before trimming the back 2 layers away. I prefer to trim first in this instance to help maintain the integrity of our piece as we are working on a bias seam. If when doing this you are only slightly over on the back, I just give it a little bit of a trim and go with it. If it is too much of a difference, I do actually unstitch my stitching line and redo the piece. In this instance, we are going to be pressing away from our medium rectangle. When we do the right hand side, we will press differently to ensure these pieces can nest when we are sewing them together. As you will see here, I do have a wee bit of overhang on some of my pieces, and because it is such a tiny amount, I am just going to trim that off. This can occur when you're pressing, as the fabric may still stretch, or it could be from the placement of your stitching line. I just find it easier when it's so small like this to just trim those little pieces off, because it will not impact the overall finished result of our sew and flip units. If it is majorly off or majorly over, I will unpick all of the stitching and redo the unit. We now need to trim the back 2 layers away, so we do this by placing our ruler and trimming away at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's now time to do our right side sew and flips, and the process is exactly the same, except this time we need to place our small black background squares on our medium rectangle, with the drawn line going from the top right to the bottom left. As you would have seen me doing there, I have all of my diagonal lines now drawn on each of my small background squares. I'm placing it in the orientation, as I said, that goes from the top right to the bottom left of the square, and once again we will stitch these on going from the straight edge towards the corner instead of from the corner. Also again, we will stitch to 1 thread width to the right of this drawn line in this instance, so I have set my machine back to have the needle position on the right hand side. Let's sew. While I was cutting these apart, I noticed that this particular one was practically on the line and not to the outside of the line as I prefer. As you can see here, we don't really get a proper fold back, so I am actually going to take these stitches out and re-sew them. As I am re-sewing this one, I do actually place the other square on all of the remaining pieces, and once again make sure that your drawn line is going in the same orientation as the one that you've already attached, which is from the top right to the bottom left. As with our left hand sew and flip units that we created, we need to press these right hand ones and trim off the excess layers. In this instance, as you can see me doing here, we are going to press towards our rectangle, as this will allow for us to nest our seams to sew these units together. You can skip this pressing instruction if you like, but it will make it much easier for the rest of construction. Once we've pressed all of these towards our medium rectangle, we will trim off the back 2 layers before proceeding to the next step. With all of our right hand sew and flips now pressed, we just need to trim away those back 2 layers at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now that we have our left and right sew and flip units done, we just simply need to sew them together in pairs. Some of this part of this tutorial will not apply to you, as I am working with a directional fabric. I have to make sure that I've got my points going in the right direction for the direction of my fabric. So my placement is a little bit different. For you, simply sew a left and a right unit together, nesting the seams because of the way we pressed, and once all 4 units are done, we'll be ready for final block construction. Now that I've made sure that my 2 units here will be pointing in the right direction and have the correct fabric orientation for my directional fabric, you'll see here that because of our pressing, we will have opposing seams to sew these units together. I'm sorry if adding in my directional fabric confuses people, but as I said before, if you're not using a directional fabric, you simply need to piece 2 of these together to make the unit, as I'm showing you now. I'm not sure how much of that you saw during the fast motion, but when making this block, I would strongly recommend against using a directional fabric, as it did supply a tiny bit of a headache to make sure that I had everything the right way. As you can see me doing now, we are just simply going to sew these units together so that we have our 4 completed subunits ready for final block construction. Now press these units before moving on, and in this instance I do prefer to press this seam allowance open. We do have 8 pieces of fabric coming together at each of our intersections, and if any of you are eagle-eyed enough, you will notice that in this instance I have my 1 piece of my directional fabric going in the wrong direction. I guess later on in the footage you'll see me unpick this one and re-sew it, but for now let's press all 4 of these units open. Time for me now to move back to the piece that I sewed incorrectly with my directional fabric. Because I had already pressed this open, I'm just going to press it back flat before fixing it up, and I'll meet you back then with it all nice and proper to move on to final block construction.
A few moments later.
Now that we have all of our block components made, it's now time to lay it out as per the pattern, and the block is put together, as most of our blocks are, in a simple 9-patch construction. To do a 9-patch construction, all you do is first of all you start by sewing your vertical seams, pressing those appropriately, and finally sewing your 2 horizontal seams. Let's go! In this instance, we will be pressing the top and the bottom row out towards the corners and the center row in towards the solid block in the center. If you followed the suggested pressing directions, all of our intersections now should nest nicely, and we'll be able to sew these 2 horizontal seams without issue. We are going to press these units now towards the center, as that gives you the path of least resistance. We'll then move on and put the other side on, give it a final all over press, and this week's block will be done. Thanks for joining me again this week, folks. If you haven't done so already, please consider clicking the like button, sharing my video with a friend, and subscribing to my channel. Subscribing is free, and if you hit that little bell icon, you'll be notified of all my future updates. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.